Hello. Hello,
Hi.
welcome to Self-Publishing Insiders, everybody. I'm Jim Azevedo. I lead marketing and corporate communications here at Draft Digital. And today, I am so excited to welcome best-selling author Maria Frankland to the show. I'm going to read just a quick bio real quick here, Maria, because I love it. So Maria is a best-selling psychological thriller author, currently writing her 21st book, and is based in Yorkshire in England, home of Yorkie bars, Yorkshire puddings, and Yorkshire tea, three of her favorite things. This is kind of funny. She has an extremely dodgy Google search history, as you can imagine, as a psychological thriller writer, and a very worried mother-in-law. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you. That's a great intro. Thank you. It's great to be here. I've watched quite a few of the Draft to Digital shows, so it feels quite surreal to now be on here myself.
Well, it's about time. We're so happy that you're here. But I
Thank
have
you.
to ask you, no Yorkshire Terrier? To
Pardon? No,
add, no,
it's Yorkshire.
oh,
It's pronounced Yorkshire. No,
Yorkshire.
no,
Sorry.
no, I haven't got a Yorkshire Terrier. I've actually got a Sprudel, so that's a cross between a Spaniel and a Poodle, and she's fast asleep just down here at the moment.
Oh, okay, yeah, and I've got a German Shepherd right underneath my feet here, who,
Oh,
and
lovely.
and yeah, he any second could wake up. So if you hear any weird doggy sounds, you'll know why.
Yes, that's absolutely fine.
So to our viewers, we're happy that you're all here because we've got a really interesting conversation. I've been looking forward to this one for weeks. Because when Maria and I first started talking about what we're going to talk about, she was saying, "Hey, how about I had these three topics in mind. What do you think?" And every single one of them, I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely, positively." But the one that we're going to start with, and the one where we are probably going to spend the most time on, is tenacity. Tenacity as an author, but especially tenacity as an indie author. Because as Maria put it to me, look, there's no single silver bullet
Mm.
that is going to move you quickly from being an aspiring author to a best-selling author. So, Maria, I'm so interested, and I'm sure our viewers would be too. Can you talk about your background and what led you down the path to becoming a writer in the first place?
Yeah, sure. So, like many writers, I have been writing since I was old enough to hold a pen, and been reading ever since I could read. So, all my life,
Hmm.
what I've always aspired to is to be a published author. Now, books were kind of my life as a child. I had a
Mm.
very troubled and abusive childhood where I
Oh,
was often locked out of the house.
oh,
So goodness knows what the librarians at the local library used to think of this little
yeah.
girl that was sheltering in the library kind of every
Oh,
day. So I devoured books, and I used to take home. Don't know, have you ever seen the film Matilda?
I was just thinking, you're Matilda.
Yeah, that was me, but without the magical powers. So it's
Well,
ironic.
that's debatable,
Yeah,
considering what you how you've risen in your career. But please go
yeah.
on.
Yeah, so I was in the library constantly every day, and like I said, I don't know what the librarians must have thought, but I devoured
Mm.
books. I used to check as many books out of the library as I could on my ticket, so I'd go home with armfuls of them, because often I was also made to stay in my room when I was at home in the evening. So
Oh,
I used to. It was my escape. It was
yeah.
wonderful to have this escape. And similarly, I used to pour myself into making up stories and also escaping into different places that way as well.
Hmm.
I was actually taken into care at 13, so I was in care throughout my teens. So
Oh, like home care.
yeah, the local authority care. So I was in three
Ah,
three different children's homes and a couple of foster homes.
oh wow.
Uh,
So this is a serious situation we're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah, it was a serious situation, but books were my absolute lifeline.
Hmm.
Reading them, just writing poetry as well. I mean, I wrote tons of absolutely appalling poetry in my teens about dogs, boys, and everything else in between. But it was such therapy as well. I've when I look back, I realise how lucky I am to have the gift of being able to write and to be able to pour things out onto the page. It has been a gift throughout my life. So yeah, so I mean that was childhood. Unfortunately, it didn't really stop there. Because I was different, because I was in care. I think I was the only sort of teenager at my high school who was in care of the local authority. So I got bullied. As kids are pretty cute, pretty cruel. So yes, I got bullied. Yeah. So again, you know, the books continued to be my lifeline throughout my teens, and then as we so often do, I repeated sort of childhood patterns of then going on to marry quite badly into another abusive situation.
It's interesting how that happens.
Yeah.
That's so common.
Yeah. And again, I just carried on writing. I never really thought it would come to anything. It was mainly poetry, short stories. I always dreamed of writing a novel, but I never really thought I'd be good enough. And my ex-husband used to catch me writing, because it was something I did without him knowing, and tell me it was a complete waste of time, basically. I'm so glad I never listened to him.
Wow.
So yeah, it was amazing therapy though. And after I mean, I was with the man for a number of years, because we had a son together. And one of the first things I did after we did split up, I was 40. Lots of things happen at 40, don't they? And it was quite monumental to me.
We were talking about the change when you hit 40 in the last podcast that we did. Something about that magical number.
It really is a monumental
kind of wakes you up a bit.
Yeah, when you kind of realise that time is ticking on. I think up until that point, you think you're kind of invincible and you're going to be around forever. Yeah. But I think 40, and then I've turned 50 now, so I'm another decade on. On my 40th birthday, I decided I was going to break free of this marriage, and I also decided I was going to go for it with my writing. So the two things I did in that year was I enrolled on a MA in creative writing, which is like a higher degree.
Yeah.
And I also released a poetry collection called Poetry for the Newly Single 40-something, which sort of chronicled my experience of being trapped in this marriage. So these were two very liberating things that kind of kicked me off. I don't write poetry anymore. It all gets channeled now into my psychological thrillers. So
wow.
Yeah.
you're not the first best-selling author I've heard who has spoken about the virtues of writing and reading poetry to help their prose writing, because of the flow and the word choice, and the musicality of writing.
Yeah.
But I have to ask you, like, I mean, I was thinking about this before we even got on today. Why is it that some people who have faced adversity and face bad things happening in their lives, understandably curl up into the fetal position and just kind of shut down, whereas others can take a moment, think about their situation, and run into the fire to fix it, to get out of that situation? And it's not just that you left your marriage, but you had a small child at the time too, and you decided to keep on writing, and not only keep on writing, but take your writing to the next level.
Yeah.
Can you, what did it for you? I mean, aside from the birthdays, but there's got to be something else in there that made you just say, hey, I'm going to break through this wall here.
Yeah. Well, I've always been one of these who runs into the fire. I think that's definitely the best way to be. That's not to say I don't understand somebody who would curl up. And I certainly had my moments where I've curled up over the years and thought, oh, why me? And is it ever going to get any better?
Yeah, you're human.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. I guess I mean, I completely flunked out of school. I was bullied, as I've mentioned, at high school. I didn't even bother turning up for my exams. So I came out of school with no qualifications apart from an English GCSE, as they're known over in the UK. And that was only because it was continual assessment. There wasn't actually an exam at the end. So I got that, came out of school with that one qualification. And it was only, I had my first son, my eldest son, when I was 20. And he had really severe, he still has got really severe ADHD. So he was a real challenging child to parent. But while he was a baby, I wanted better for us. I was a single parent at the time. This is before I met my husband, my ex-husband. And I went to night classes. I got babysitters, put him into creche. I went and I trained as a secretary at the time, and I always wanted to keep bettering myself. Then when he was a bit older and my second child was born, I went to university then and got a degree in teaching. Only lasted at that for 3 years. But I've been able to channel that teaching degree into writing, because I have creative writing courses that I've devised. So I guess I've just got this fire within me that it's always been there, and I'm again really blessed to have it. I don't know where it's come from, but this like drive to be the best version I can of myself, and I guess to show other people as well now that you can, no matter where you come from. And I really, I've come from some real poverty and unhappiness. You can fight your way through it, no matter who you are or where it is that you're starting. There's just hope for all of us. It's just, you've got to have that. I guess I had that belief in myself, had that inner core that I knew I would get there eventually, wherever there is. I don't think we ever quite get there, but we're always striving, aren't we? So. But yeah, I'm incredibly lucky to have that fire, as well as the ability to write. And I guess another part of the decision at 40s, I wanted better for my children, not to be living in that environment. I wanted them to see me reach for what I've always wanted to do. I think we writers have it running through us like a stick of rock. I couldn't not write, even if I'd never had anything published, or even if I'd published all these books and nobody was buying a single copy, I would still have to write. It runs through me in the same way other people's careers might run through them. I will probably write till the day I die. I can't help but do it.
Yeah, it's who you are. It's so inspiring. It's so inspiring. When I think about the writers, including myself, who, you want excuses? Like, I've got them for not getting my work done. And so to hear about the tribulations that you have gone through, and come out to the other side, it's not that everything's done and fine, and that there are no more challenges that come up in any of our lives, but to hear what you've been through and how you just kept working on it and working on it and working on it is so inspiring. And it's it helps us kind of break out of that ice and just get moving, take that first step.
Yeah.
I want to bring up a couple of comments from our listeners and viewers out there. Hi, Michael. Thank you for posting.
Hi.
For our podcast listeners who aren't watching, Michael says, it's interesting how difficult childhood and later adversity has resulted in a creative life. I wonder if in part it's due to creating a safe space, a more loving space the world is providing.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I think he's got a great point there. Yeah. I think being able to escape into another world of writing, it obviously the place that you're creating on paper itself is an escape, but I think the space you create inside yourself, because you've got to be peaceful to a certain extent and have that focus just to be able to sit down and carve out that space to be able to write. So yeah, that's a really good comment.
It's hard to find that peaceful space when you have turmoil circling around you. And kind of on that same vein, Scott, welcome, Scott. Scott says, here's a John Quincy Adams quote, written from Scott. Patience and perseverance have a magical effect before which difficulties disappear and obstacles vanish. My mother would add, patience is more than a virtue, it's everything.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Now, my
Yeah.
husband would say I don't have any patience, but I would argue.
That's what husbands are supposed to say.
Yeah,
That's like it's part of the job description when we take that on.
yeah. Yeah, that's great. That magical effect before which difficulties disappear and obstacles vanish. Yes, I'll remember that. I love it.
Yeah. I want to ask you, when did you get to the point where, so you continued to write this entire time? When did you get to the point where you felt that that maybe you wanted to publish some of these stories or look for a publisher? When did you think you had a shot at actually finding an audience? Did somebody tell you, or did you just have it inside of yourself? How did that come about?
I think I had it inside myself anyway. I think there was always something bubbling inside me that knew I
Hmm.
wanted to put something out into the world. So my very first foray into publishing was I've mentioned my eldest son and his ADHD. I'd kept some behaviour diaries and food charts and all sorts on him as when he was growing up, just to try and identify patterns. And there were so many of them, and they were so just off the wall. I eventually kind of turned them into a book, which it's a massive kind of 500,000 word book. It's like sorry, 100,000 word book.
Okay.
And it's a memoir. I published it when KDP first opened their doors in
Okay.
in the first couple of years. I think it was 2012 I published it, and
Okay.
it's been well received. It was people, the feedback was great, and I kind of knew that gave me the confidence that I could actually write. But the way it was speaking to other mums who were in a similar situation with me,
Yeah.
it kind of made me realise that I could not only write, but I could also write in a way that might change and help people, and give them
Yeah.
support and inspiration. So that was kind of my first foray into writing, and then I decided I was going to have a go at a novel. So whilst I was still in my first marriage, I was bashing out this novel, but I was pouring a lot of myself into it. I think we have to do that as new novelists. I think maybe the
Sure.
first couple of novels are kind
Yeah.
of almost
You're
semi-autobiographical.
right. You write what you know.
Yeah, we have to kind of get our own selves onto the page and out there, and then you
I
can
bet.
get a little bit more fictional with it. So this first book that I wrote, it started out being called The Man Behind Closed Doors. What I did was I switched the roles around so that I couldn't get sued or anything. I was putting so much of myself and some
Yeah.
incidents that had happened in my marriage into this fictional story that I knew
Okay.
I had to really, really change things so nothing would ever be recognised. So that was the first book I wrote, and I was loving the process so much. And then after my marriage, after I'd left him, and I realised I was going to do this MA in creative writing, so I
Okay.
applied for funding all over the place because it was expensive to
I see.
this 2-year degree.
Was that first book? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but was that first book a psychological thriller?
Yeah, it turned
Okay,
into.
so you've
Oh,
always
yeah.
had. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, nobody died in my first marriage, but in my novel, they did. So
Okay.
I kind of had half a book ready when I started my MA in creative writing. And I would have eaten beans for 2 years to go to do this MA, because it was kind of through doing that and investing in myself as a writer and mixing with all the other writers and working with tutors, and it
Yeah.
made me realise, oh my God, this is what I want to do, especially when visiting authors were coming and speaking to us as a group. I kind of wanted to touch these authors and have some of their magic, so
And
that
I'll bet you nobody bullied you during those classes.
No, it was wonderful. I did love my time at university, both as an undergrad when I was training to be a teacher, and then when I went back and did this creative writing MA. So it was through that course it opened so many doors, publishing opportunities, contacts with people, and it was then that I thought, I have got to go for this. So by the time I finished there, I had The Man Behind Closed Doors complete, and I shopped that around for years because I thought being traditionally published would be the holy grail.
Sure.
Yeah. So I in total I had 47 rejections.
47. That's
Yeah.
not bad. I mean,
47.
let's face it, when we look back 12, 14, 15 years, traditional publishing was the option of first resort for everybody. For
Yeah,
everybody. Publishing hadn't been democratized yet, so you were right on the cusp. But I'm
yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
go on.
yeah. So yeah, I had all those rejections, but I knew this book had legs. So the few people who'd read it, the feedback had been great. So
Yeah.
and then I entered it into a debut novelist competition, and it got placed. This competition doesn't run any longer. It ran for 10 years, and it was an international one. And I got down to the final 10, and was
Wow.
invited down to London for kind of the prize giving. So I had a 1 in 10 chance of winning this sum of money and a publishing contract. I
How
didn't win.
exciting.
It was exciting. It was wonderful, so validating.
And
So
it's validating, yeah.
yeah, even though I hadn't won, I knew then this book, I thought I have got to publish this book. And I started looking into self-publishing. So I've got to credit one of my friends here, Jane, if she's watching, Jane Brown.
Okay.
She's an author as well. And she kept banging on at me about this self-publishing, and it was the bee's knees, and she was going into it. And I'm like, nope, I want the proper contract. But eventually I listened, and once I started, it was just like, why didn't I do this before? It was just wonderful. So I republished my memoir, sort of edited that, because I'd grown so much as a writer in the years since. And that started to take off quite well, did the memoir. And shortly afterwards, I published What Was the Man Behind Closed Doors, and another 2 books that year. I had them stockpiled. So this was in 2020, before I kind of went for it full time. But in the years leading up to that, I was writing, and I was earning my living as a writer, because I was doing classes and writing retreats and the courses that I've devised, and so and editing other people's work and
Yeah.
manuscript appraisal and all that. So I was immersed in the world of writing, and I just kind of had to make it myself by that time. And
I sense this trend of making it by myself emerging
yeah,
as a through line during this conversation.
yeah, but I'm talking about making it by myself. I must now also mention my now husband, who I married just before lockdown, Michael. He's believed in me since the start. He's sort of encouraging me to send my work off to publishers. He was one of the first people
All
to ever
right, Michael.
read that book.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably watching somewhere. But anyway, in 2020, obviously, we both of us were suddenly out of work and totally broke as well. And he encouraged me to keep writing. He actually took on 2 jobs. He's a probation officer now, and he also took on a weekend job. And he believed in my work, and he said, "I want you to keep writing." I already had these books stockpiled for 2020, but
Good man.
he could see they were selling, and could see they were doing something. So encouraged me to. He said, "I'll pay all the bills. You everything you
Wow.
earn, put back into your business." And it was literally the first time in my life that somebody had ever really believed in me to this extent. So
Wow.
he continues to be. He's my first reader. So when I get to about the 3rd draft in a manuscript, it goes to him. And he's brilliant. If it's crap, he'll tell me it's crap. He does not mince his words. He's
Yeah.
also is my proofreader as well. And I know I'm so lucky to have
Everybody needs a Michael.
yeah, definitely. So, and I think this is a recurring theme with a lot of writers. It's kind of, I think your choice of life partner is one of the most important decisions. Well, obviously, it's the most important decision you can ever make on so many levels. So,
Yeah.
if you've got that stability to start with, you can spring forward. Whereas in my last marriage, I was just getting sucked under and pulled down. But now there's somebody who says, "Go for it," and
What a 180-degree turn. I mean, because when you're getting beat down, figuratively all the time, it can really, destroy your confidence
oh,
in
it did,
yourself. But you had the tenacity to keep on
yeah,
going no matter what. And
yeah.
then for somebody else to come along and support you no matter what, it's like, what is this? Is this
Yeah,
person even real? Wow.
I mean, I say tenacity, but as well as I did the work on myself. I went for counselling to go and back and deal with all that childhood stuff that I'd gone
That's
through, and
a very wise decision to do.
yeah,
To do.
yeah. I really worked on myself, so I was in a position by sort of in my early 40s to attract somebody like Michael into my life, somebody who would support me, because I'd done that work on trying to deal with it all, really, and again the writing as well. That's always been there. That's always been my therapy, and in all the books I've written, I'm now writing book 21. There's little threads of me in all of them, in all the characters. There's bits of me, and in all the men that meet a sticky end. There's probably bits of my ex-husband in there, but I shouldn't really say.
Okay, we didn't hear it. Don't worry. Yeah, it is amazing how therapeutic writing can be. I just wanted to bring up a quick comment here from Lexi, our own Lexi Green, who says, to publish a book requires the drive and tenacity of knowing that 99.9% of people will never do what you're doing.
So true, yeah. The amount of people who say, oh, I could write a book. And you think, go on then, give it a go. That's the only way you can write a book, is to actually write a book.
Yeah, and to let the not good parts, just get them out. You can fix all that stuff later. I want to bring up this comment here from Sarah. Hi, Sarah. She says the first book, Don't Call Me Mum, helped me so much. That's how I found Maria.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that's the memoir I was talking about that I wrote all those years ago, and I've had so many lovely comments like that, which was one of the things that kept me writing when I knew I could help other people with what I was creating. So I wouldn't say my psychological thrillers are very therapeutic, but they are on some level, because, well, I think every time somebody looks up from one, they'll look around and think how lucky they are to have their own family when they've been immersed in my psychological thrillers, where there's some real darkness and dysfunction in them. But there's still that sort of element of entertainment and escapism and everything that I'm providing for my readers, I hope.
I think you are, and a lot of even if their situation isn't exactly like yours, they can relate, and it kind of breaks you out of, as a reader, breaks you out of that solitude, that feeling of just being alone in your situation.
Yeah, definitely.
I love this comment from Michael. Michael says, for me, it was the death of my brother and publishing his letters, and that released my creativity into the world. We are all hurling to eternity, I felt. And what do I have to lose?
Yeah, that's so true. It takes a massive amount of bravery to put something out in the world, especially when it's something so personal. But I think it can help other people. That's the ultimate thing. When you put in that much of yourself and something you've been through, for Michael, the death of his brother, I mean, that's massive to put that out. But that's going to help so many other bereaved people. So it's really, really brave. So
I'm so glad you said that. It's so courageous to show that vulnerability.
Yeah.
It can also be terrifying to click publish on your first book. Terrifying, but at the same time liberating, because you finally have all that weight off your shoulder, and then you realize, wait a second, I've survived this. I can keep on going. And then when you start to realize that, hey, there are actually complete strangers who are reading my work and enjoying it, and then it's off to the races, I think.
Yeah. So I don't think that fear of hitting the publishing button ever goes away. I've hit it 20 times now, and I'm always full of trepidation of how it's going to be received. Even when those early reviews are coming in, I'm watching them like a hawk. I think the most terrifying thing is probably when I give the manuscript to Michael, because, like I say, he's brutally honest. And then and then my advanced reader team, there's usually 50 of my readers who take an advance copy, and I'm waiting for all the feedback coming in off them. And it's terrifying. It's like,
I understand that.
You put so much of yourself into a book, don't you? And you want your readers to enjoy it. You want them to love it. So it is terrifying. And then hitting that publish button, doesn't get any easier.
Yeah. Okay. I want to shift gears here a little bit. I knew I was going to love this conversation, but I also want to get to a couple of the other topics that you and I were thinking about addressing here. And one of those is indie publishing and hybrid publishing. Not necessarily indie versus hybrid, but you were fortunate enough to have a traditional publisher or an imprint from a traditional publisher uh, contact you. They're interested in three of your books.
Yes, that's
And you started working with this imprint. Were those books, had you already published those books and they had become bestsellers, or
yes, yeah.
how,
All
so tell us how this all happened.
Well, they definitely cherry picked the best three. I
Okay.
will say that. And ironically, one of them was The Man Behind Closed Doors, which had had those 47 rejections and that
Okay.
near miss in that competition. So they retitled that. And it's now called The Married Couple. So that was The Man Behind Closed Doors. So ironically, yes, that was picked up after, it's been on quite a journey as that book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So amazingly, I got an email from them. It was actually on my 50th birthday last year. So that to me was kind of just, it felt like fate. It was unbelievable. I thought, after, because I mean, as writers, we suffer a lot of rejection, really. I don't think there's any other profession where you kind of put yourself up for the same amount of rejection as you do when you're writing books,
Yeah.
writing anything for that matter, from publishers, from agents.
Hmm.
Even from the public, when the awful reviews do come in, as they invariably do to every single writer, even Stephen King.
Sure.
So we're always subject to that. But to get this email from this publisher on my 50th birthday, I was like, wow, I was blown away. I was so excited about it, and I didn't really think twice before entering into a contract with them. I thought, this is going to be brilliant. It's going to propel me into.
Did you pursue them, or did you have somebody? Did you have an agent at the time, or they just found you?
They just found me. Yeah. At
Wow.
first,
Okay.
me and my husband were Googling everything to make sure it was for real and not some kind
Yeah,
of.
I bet you were.
Yeah. But we soon established it was for real, and they'd found
Okay.
me. In fact, this editor had just finished reading one of my books and said it had kept her from her work all afternoon.
Nice.
So I was blown away. I was so pleased, and it has, on the whole, been a positive experience. So
Okay.
as I say, it provided the validation for a starter, which was
Sure.
great. I've been somebody who's had levels of low self-esteem, as you can imagine, throughout my life. So to have this company contact me and all this praise for the work that I'd already put out by myself, it
Yeah.
was brilliant. So yeah, there was the validation. It was the fact that they've also introduced me to my cover designer, who's gone on to redesign my whole back catalogue. So on a private basis, away from the
Hmm.
publisher, it's introduced me to him, which has increased my sales as well, because my covers are so much better than they were.
Did you design your original covers yourself, or?
My very first covers were designed by a friend who wasn't
Okay.
really a psychological thriller designer. While he was good, they didn't really say
Sure.
psychological thriller. So
Okay.
I did them all myself again, and they weren't great.
Okay.
So yeah, when I met this designer, he's done a much better job. So I'm very
Yeah.
pleased with them now. So yeah, introduced me to him. That was another upside of the contract, and I guess it's brought my craft on as a writer, working with this publisher, with all the different editors at all the different stages.
Hmm.
I'd not really had that level of professional input into my work and that chance to bounce ideas around. So that was really good. So
It must have been a huge educational experience for you as well.
Yeah, I have learned a lot through the process, but it's nothing that an indie can't get just by working with an editor,
Okay.
that you're employing directly as a
Hmm.
freelance editor. So whilst all this sort of help and support was under one roof with the with the publishing company, it's nothing that I haven't sort of received as an indie. It was just all more kind of concentrated. So it's been good. They've republished 3 of my books, and I've written
Hmm.
3 brand new ones for them. But the bottom line is, on the sort of more negative side, it's not as lucrative, not nearly as lucrative as publishing by myself. And also, giving away the control, it's just, it's like when they said they were changing the title of The Man Behind Closed Doors, which sort of says what it is, to The Married Couple. I was like,
that's like changing the name. That's like changing the name of your firstborn. Like,
gosh, yeah, I was
distraught
by it. And even my readers were getting in touch saying, no, why have they... And it caused confusion as well. So they did change the title of one of my other books, but changed it back again after, I put up a massive fight there. So it's that loss of control as well when you do sign with a publisher. They're in control of the title, the cover, the marketing. And I market my books. I really do. I'm there on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram. Ads, whereas I don't think the publishers, they get behind them for a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then that's it.
That's it.
Which is why I think they target us indies, because they know we're good at it. They know we're going to, we're going to get behind our own books, so much more than maybe an author who's only ever known the traditional world might. So we're well versed in marketing. A lot of us have taken courses. We learn from each other. We've got a really good community as
you've established your own businesses.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, it is a business. So and I think as well, we indies are more in touch with our readers.
Absolutely.
I know 100%. A few of my readers will be watching. They are absolutely amazing. Many of them have become friends, but we have that more direct relationship as indies with our readers. So it's it's better in that sense as well. But to have that control back, so I had no intention of signing any more contracts with the publisher.
Is that contract, is that over and done with now?
Yeah, it's over and done with now. I've just released my last book with them. Funnily enough, in the last month, I've actually been approached by another traditional publisher in exactly the same way. Dropped me an email, said I've come to their attention. They keep noticing my books on Amazon and keep seeing me on social media. Would I like a conversation about a prospective working relationship? I was like, no, thank you. And that was empowering. That was
coming full circle.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, from chasing after 47 publishers with that first book I wrote, to turning around and saying no, thank you. It feels great.
Well, now you have another 45 publishers to reject.
If there's any film producers out there, of course, I'll definitely take that forward. Yeah, that's my ultimate dream as an author, is to get something made into a film, and I will achieve it. I really will.
I think we all know here. Everybody who's listening to this or watching all know that. Yeah, you'll get there. We know you will. But I have to ask you. So with the original publishing contract, did you have the option to extending that relationship? And did you have to tell them, no, I think I want to go back to indie publishing? Or did it just run out?
Well, it's kind of signed on a book by book basis. So I signed for, I think it was 3 books to start with. There were 2 separate contracts anyway. And then it's a case of the basis it works in that company is authors send them sort of ideas that an overview of a book we might want to publish, and I just haven't sent any ideas, so there hasn't actually been a conversation, but I've fulfilled the contracts that I've signed. So I guess if I don't send any more ideas, I might get asked for them, but there's no obligation for me to. And I'd rather keep my ideas and just work on them. So,
well, I was going to ask you, was it uncomfortable when you said, no, I want to just keep going on my own?
Yes, that's definitely my decision. Yeah.
I want to bring up a quick question from Sarah here. Sarah asked, why do the publishers want to change the titles?
I really don't know. I guess they perceive themselves as the experts, although I think we authors are the experts because we know our own books.
And you know your readers.
Yeah. I think they think it would be more commercially viable to change the titles, like they're going to get more sales, or I disagree completely, because I just think it leads to reader confusion, and I don't know. I don't know why they want to change the titles. It's yeah.
That's one of the reasons, Sarah, why that's one of the reasons why indie authors collectively they mention how control is one of their favorite parts. That maintaining that you don't only maintain 100% of your rights, but you maintain 100% creative control over everything. So
That's it. Yeah. And
yeah,
I
so
love that.
right, like you get to decide when your manuscript graduates to become a published book, and when that book is going to be released, and the title, and what the cover art's going to look like.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
of it.
And also the story itself, I've had instances where, and I've got to change the ending, or I've got to change a character, or, some are quite, major rewrites, some are smaller, but I don't like that. I like to I like to have my own control and autonomy over my work. So, but I'm glad I've tried it, because at least I know I know what it's about now, to work with a traditional publisher. So I'm glad I've had the experience. I'm not knocking it at all, but I've just come to the conclusion that I am a control freak, and I would like to retain that control. And also the money is the money side of it as well. I don't want to have to share all the royalties. I'd like, if it's my work, it's I'm putting it out there, so I know it's much more lucrative to continue as an indie.
Yeah, and as I told you, in the backstage area, that you're not the first best-selling author I've met who has done very well for herself, got picked up by a traditional publisher, and has gone back to indie publishing for all those reasons that you've mentioned. And like you, they also said, "Hey, I loved working with a traditional publisher, but in the end, it was a more lucrative decision. Plus, I
Yeah.
had my control to
Yes.
remain
Yeah.
as an indie publisher."
Yeah.
Quick question here from Scott, if you don't mind, Maria. Scott's asking, what is the most lucrative social media platform you use to promote your books?
Facebook, without a shadow of a doubt. So I think partly it depends on what genre you're writing and the demographic of your audience. So my readers are generally kind of like me. They're women. Most of them have got like grown-up children. They're kind of my age. And my generation, and probably the one above, we're like the Facebook generation. That's kind of where we are. So I run my ads on Facebook. I have a group set up, a private group with my sort of super readers in, the ones who've literally become friends over the years. Some of them have been there since the beginning. And then I've got a Facebook page where I get quite a lot of engagement, but I don't just post about my books. I post pictures of my dog, pictures of, when I'm out and about, pictures of, cups of tea and what I'm reading. And, I use it as a place to promote other authors as well. So, but yeah, I think Facebook's great for my own platform, but I do also post, I do these balmy videos on TikTok as well, where I pretend I'm one of my characters, and they get automatically cross-posted to Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, I do the balmy videos, but I do also put photos up on Instagram. I don't get as much engagement there, but I think that's just because on Instagram, probably the demographics slightly younger. There's more maybe sort of 20 to 35, maybe the average demographic on Instagram. So yeah, Facebook it is for me.
But Facebook, hands down.
Yeah,
okay. I wanted to bring up this comment here from Ali. Thanks for the comment, Ali. Ali says, Maria has a wonderful relationship with her readers who have now, I hope, become friends. From the time you pick up your first Maria Frankland book, you're hooked.
Oh, bless her. I didn't pay her to say that. Thank you, Alex.
Sure you did.
Yeah, this is just an example of one of my readers. They're all like this, I'm very, very lucky. So, yeah.
Well, they're lucky to have you too. And it doesn't sound like you're out there just promoting your books and trying to sell your books all the time. You're giving a piece of yourself back to your readers. And that all started, years ago with your memoir. And it's I think with from your memoir, even in your fictional books, providing a service to your readers who need, to get away for a bit.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, I wanted to touch on one last topic. We've got like a minute left. Can we do it, Maria?
Gosh, that's gone quickly.
Yeah, they always do. They just go by in a flash.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, But I just really quickly, maybe within we can take a couple of minutes. Um, you don't only write series, you also have a bunch of standalones too, and you've had success with standalones and your read through with your standalones. And ordinarily when we talk about series, we talk about how there's data that shows how series books sell better than standalone books. But you've had quite a bit of success with your standalones. Can you talk a little bit
Yeah.
about how you've achieved that success with your standalones, and maybe provide a little, advice to authors who are listening or watching?
Yeah, sure. Well, the two series that I've got two trilogies, and they started
Okay.
out as standalones, and it was just because of readers sort of saying we want more of the these
Mm,
characters that they ended up turning into trilogies. But really, I am a standalone writer, and I know the advice in the indie world is write a series, because you get that read through. Write 10 books in a series, write 12. I think I would get bored doing any more. That I've done
mhm.
three in a series, and I would probably get bored as a person, writing any more than that. But I love doing the standalones really, and even though I'm going against the advice of what's lucrative and what readers want, I think mine is a genre where standalones work well. So firstly, it depends on the genre that you're writing in. Perhaps police procedurals would, and that kind of thing would work better in a series. But I think readers are more open to standalone psychological thrillers, because it's often a snapshot in a moment. It's a psychological thriller. It's very fast paced, and deals with kind of a single situation within the story. So I think we can get away with having standalones. But I think
Mm,
I do get the read through. I know it's very difficult to measure, but I know from my feedback, I know from the emails I get and the comments I get on Facebook saying,
mhm.
"Oh, Ali, who we've just been talking to, I know she's down to her penultimate book of mine. She's telling me to write faster." Yeah, so it's the comments that I know that I'm getting the read through, generally, and hopefully once readers have read one or two of my books, they then go through the lot. And I think that's probably it's because I have quite a distinct writer voice, which we've all got our own voice as a writer.
Sure.
And I think if we can identify that and carry it through, and it often takes, I'd say, 3 or 4 books before you really do establish your writing voice. So by writing voice, I kind of mean, so for me, mine's very down to earth. I think I
Okay.
tend to write a little bit how I speak. My character, my Yorkshire accent comes through in all my books as well, so my readers know to expect that sort of Yorkshireness. I think my characters are extremely relatable. So people, readers opening a Maria Franklin book know they're going to get that. They're going to get that relatability. They're going to get a character who they could be themselves, or
Okay.
could live next door to them. So they know they're going to get that. And then all the sort of, the trademarks of the genre, like the twists. And I also start each story with a prologue where there's a dead body, literally.
Uh,
And the reader always, the note, so the reader knows there's going to be a death, because that's one of the tropes, obviously, in our books, in our genre. But they don't know the who, they don't know and they don't know who's dead, and they don't know who's done it. So that's kind of the essence of all the stories. So
that's the hook.
there
Yeah.
are things, there are sort of aspects in each book that are the same, even though they are standalone stories with a different set of characters. So the voice and the structure, uh,
Okay.
really, yeah. And then obviously the
Mm.
covers, I guess, there is that sort of author branding where, things are all in the same
They have
places.
to be. Yeah.
Yeah, same typography.
And branding. Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of visual branding. But I think the branding's more about kind of, what's actually in the story and what readers are expecting to hear
Uh,
from a particular author.
Okay. The voice and the structure and that
Yeah,
expectation that your readers have come
yeah,
to
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna bring up one final question.
Okay.
Where did it go? Here it is. From Doreen. Doreen says, "Hi Maria. What is the most important element of hooking a reader in a personal memoir?"
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Um, I would say it's being honest. Well, obviously you are honest in that's a really difficult question. Um, I think you need to have a subject that's relatable. So in my terms, it was being an ADHD mum to an ADHD son. And that was something that was relatable to so many other women. And it's kind of being on their level in your writing, being very down to earth. My style of writing a memoir is almost as if I'm talking to a friend over a coffee. And just that relatability. So that for me is probably the most important element. Guess it could be different depending on what sort of memoir you're writing. So I hope that answers. Yeah, it's really
relatability. That's a tough one. That is a tough one because every memoir is going to be different. It's unique to the person who's written it.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good answer. Yeah, make it relatable. And you already mentioned how you kind of opened yourself up and you were vulnerable with some of the stories that you shared in that original memoir.
Yes.
So we have come to the end of time. It felt like just a flash. It was so fast. I knew that was going to happen. But I wanted to thank you again, Maria, so much for your time today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure. And you have an open invitation to come back and visit us again, okay?
Wow, thank you.
And I want to thank our viewers for visiting us week in and week out, and especially to those of you who are new. I saw some new names out there, so welcome. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you could do us a favor, this is the portion of the podcast where we go through the obligatory questions and comments and suggestions like this. But if you could like, share, comment, and subscribe to Self-Publishing Insiders, we would really appreciate it because it helps us to attract guests like Maria who can share their wisdom and knowledge with us all. And if you bookmark why am I tripping over this? If you bookmark d2dlive.com, you can see what next week's topic is going to be and who our guest is going to be as well. You would think that week in and week out, I would get this stuff down and I wouldn't trip over my tongue. And finally, for those of you who may be newer to self-publishing, you can sign up for a free Draft to Digital account simply by going to draft2digital.com. Well, once again, thank you everybody so very much for joining us here this week. We really appreciate you being here. We value your time. We know that not all of us have a lot of time to just waste out there. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Maria, thank you again. And I'm going to share a quick 30-second commercial spot for D2D Print. D2D Print is Draft to Digital's print on demand service. For everybody else, I'll see you next week. And Maria, I'll catch you backstage here in just a few seconds. Bye, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.
Ebooks are great, but there's just something about having your words in print. Something you can hold in your hands, put on a shelf, sign for a reader. That's why we created D2D Print, a print-on-demand service that was built for you. We have free, beautiful templates to give your book a pro look, and we can even convert your ebook cover into a full wraparound cover for print. So many options for you and your books. And you can get started right now at draft2digital.com.